Awesome. All right, well, let's get started. Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's webinar, Airline Seating Innovations in a Post-COVID World. My name is Sukhmen Nijjar, and I'll be moderating today's discussion. We are excited to welcome, it looks like 63 attendees. That is an amazing turnout. We'll hopefully getting in more in the next couple of minutes. Today, we're lucky to have not only the founders of Zephyr Aerospace, but also domain experts in design and seating certification, who will be covering topics like design innovation in airline seating, the process to seat certification, and a few new new developments for Zephyr Aerospace that will first be heard here. A little more about our agenda before we get started. In just a few moments, I'll be introducing our panelists. We'll start with Jeffrey O'Neill, the founder of Zephyr Aerospace, and we'll be hearing from him to touch on our vision for the company and a few more updates. Jeff will be followed by Paul Wylde, an expert in design innovation across industries, specializing in hospitality. Paul led the design for the first lie-flat business class seat for British Airways and additional projects like JetBlue Mint. He's a founder of an award-winning consultancy, and he also serves as an advisor for Zephyr Aerospace. We also have Graham Taylor, a true domain expert in airline seating development and certification. Graham has led engineering teams like, or developed products for airlines like Emirates, Etihad, Japan Airlines, and more. After sharing their thoughts, we'll have a panel discussion to follow up with a Q&A for you to ask questions directly regarding the company, the panelists, crowdfunding campaign, any questions you might have. For those just joining in, we'll have a survey questions that we'll be sending out after today's webinar. They're a simple 4-question survey that we just love feedback and we'd love to touch base on after the call as well on those points. Before I pass it over to Jeff, I'd like to give everyone just a quick snapshot of what this year has been like for Zephyr Aerospace. 6 months ago, we launched a crowdfunding campaign on Republic, and as of today, we have reached 529% of our goal. It's really amazing. We know that many of you on our call are investors, and we want to thank everyone. For those following our campaign and thinking to invest, we can't wait to tell you more about our vision and where we're headed with Zephyr Aerospace. Currently, we have 29 days left, and there's a bunch of perks that are involved with every investment amount. To date, we actually have 2,052 investors, and it's just amazing to say that. These are investors around the world, many of which are on the call today. In addition to these investors, we actually are pleasure to have co-investors, including renowned venture capitalist Tim Draper, who's previously invested in companies like Tesla, SpaceX, Coinbase, and Twitter. We also have ex-NFL star turned entrepreneur, and now he's a regular host of CNBC's halftime report, John Najarian, as a co-investor as well. In addition to this, in May, Jeff had the opportunity to pitch Zephyr Aerospace in front of millions of people on the reality TV show Meet the Drapers. And shortly after that, he actually was invited to join California by Design, which shows futuristic products designed in California. In addition to this as well, we actually had the pleasure of being introduced to hundreds of publications around the world, from CNN, Forbes, to specific travel and aerospace blogs like Travel and Leisure and Intelligent Aerospace. Launching in the wake of COVID has been really interesting. Many have looked at Zephyr as a potential to a solution to the airline industry's halt. And that's going to be a couple topics we're covering today. In addition to that, I just wanted to share, it's really cool to have the opportunity for the chairman of Forbes to actually talk on this as well. I just added a snapshot there. We'll be forwarding links after today's webinar, so everyone has these resources to read on their own. And without further ado, I'd like to pass it over to Jeff to talk about some highlights.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. And thank you, Sukhmen, for the intro. I'm glad you could all join us today on the call. I want to thank each and every one of you, even if you're not a current investor. I want to thank you for your support with this project. This has been about 2 years in the making, and the two people on this call have been very instrumental in guiding me through the positive sides and the negative aspects of kind of designing something from scratch. And the challenges ahead, they'll be very helpful for helping to confront those. We have a couple of major updates today. We have been granted a design patent for the Zephyr seat, which is quite an achievement without very little competition from competing designs in the industry. We're still working on a utility patent for it. That's going to be in the next 6 months. We'll have an update. But this gives us a very commanding position to really attack this opportunity once the industry begins to rebound and people begin to travel. Also, I'm not sure if we mentioned it here, but we've also assembled a working group for certification with the FAA. We are working with that do believe in this project and have very specific acumen and experience in high wall structures and more complex seating certification. They'll be very helpful in us as we go down our regulatory path to approval. And Graham's going to talk about a lot of the challenges we have ahead and also some of the opportunities that we have to work together and use the support from each and every one of your personal investments as a supporter of this project to move the industry forward a little bit faster. I also want to talk a little bit more about the vision, and Paul's also going to chime in. Paul has been instrumental in actually designing concepts and experiences that all of us have probably had on flights before, but not knowing what really goes into it. He's actually worked on those from the very beginning to a lot of rebranding for major airlines. So we'll get a chance to talk with him about where we see Zephyr, and more importantly, how we see your contributions, your financial contributions being deployed to bring this product to market. But I do want to stress that a lot of the impact this pandemic has had on the industry might be irreparable. And in one of these divisions, it centers around corporate business travel. And roughly, the estimation is that between 20 to 30% of business travelers may never come back to fly in normal frequent numbers like we've seen them in the past couple of years. And that's actually a very good thing for Zephyr, because Zephyr is trying to be a middle ground, a different option, a more affordable choice for these travelers. And the airlines make a lot of money from, as you know, business class tickets, but they actually make a lot of money from premium economy class too. And these margins are going to have to come, this revenue is going to have to come from somewhere else. So we see a lot of synergistic demand coming from the drop in people who are traveling now, but who will resume and are going to be looking for a better option, a safer option that affords more privacy and also provides personal comfort, like a bed, like the ability to sleep. As well, one of the major things that we've seen developed is that you see a lot of airlines that really can't afford to operate their entire route network when they come back online. So airlines like Cathay Pacific and airlines like Qantas and British Airways, they are still maintaining and slowly resuming flights to long distance destinations. And this is where another value proposition for this product is so critically important. Is sleep is, of course, in far greater demand when your flight is much longer in duration. You don't need to have a bed on a flight under 5 or 7 hours, but when it gets to close to 10 hours, this becomes a very valuable premium. And so rolling all this into one, we think that when people do start to travel, they're going to want to go to places that they had planned many years ago, and it's going to require a long distance flight. So the product is going to have very much of a significance there. The final point is, we're all looking for a way to bring this to market, and we are looking at partnerships with regulatory authorities, with outside vendors, with designers, with certification experts. But we're also thinking outside the box around what will be the foundation moving forward. So we are talking to a group called AirTech, and AirTech is a specialty consortium of both designers, seat manufacturers, and airlines that focus on how we can make airline seats more lightweight and therefore more implementable and affordable to implement for airlines. And so we're exploring some concepts and some new technologies around this as well, which we hope to talk about to you in future webinars and future updates as we go on this very long journey. As you know, you've all seen pictures of the product. It's more or less self-explanatory. The good news is I have relocated the mock-up that we built for the industry to Los Angeles. So there will be something in the US for any and all of you to see. If you're ever in Los Angeles, please let me know. We've been graciously hosted by Air Hollywood, which is a world famous aviation themed movie studio. And they're going to be housing the mock-up and helping us showcase it to the press, to potential airline customers, and to to visitors who would like to see it in action. So if you'd like to get inside of the seat, we'll have an option to do that sometime next year once COVID begins to normalize and people can be out and about. So I want to start with Paul. We've got some questions I'd like to ask specifically for you. So please feel free to give an introduction yourself. I don't want to leave anything out. And then we'll go into the next stage of this webinar.
Thank you, Jeffrey. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that this video call finds you and your families well and safe. And I think that just what I've said there, wellness and safety, I think that these are now inextricably linked values to all commercial activity moving forward. So there's a renewed sense of what wellness is and what safety is for all of us. And I think we were tracking towards that anyway, but I think COVID's just accelerated our questioning of what's important to us, what's important to our families, what's important to our communities, and what's important to society. So wellness and safety are central to what we're thinking about with this particular innovation. The only thing I wanted to say is I've probably been at the right place at the right time. I'm not particularly necessarily a very talented designer. I just think I've managed to find myself around great people during different points in my career. And the thing about aviation is it's a very exciting, very seductive, very interesting industry to be around, because you're in the industry of connecting people, and you're in the industry of connecting dreams and connecting opportunities. And there's still a theater to flight. There's still a romance and a glamour to flight. And I think the world is so small now, and flying has become so accessible. That's the reason why it keeps me engaged and it keeps you interested as potential investors. The only insight I would like to offer, and I'm very keen to get on to questions from the audience because inevitably that's much more interesting for you today. The only insight I would like to offer is if you trace back all of the seminal innovations in aviation, they all come from outside of the sector, every single one of them. You can trace this back to 1940 with the Boeing Stratocruiser. So that was the first time an aircraft manufacturer, and they're not design-led aircraft manufacturers. Aircraft manufacturers are engineering-led. They are cultures of discipline, of rigor, of conservative, gentle, evolutionary investment. One doesn't naturally find breakthrough innovations from within the industry. And we can prove this. So when you look at the Stratocruiser in 1940, the big innovation was the interior that was designed by an industrial designer. In this case, it was Walter Dorwing Teague. And there are several innovations within the Stratocruiser. The first implementation of overhead bins, for example, the first implementations of the passenger service unit. So you've got the opportunity to adjust the microenvironment in your own individual light. These were seminal innovations for the time. When you think back to the 1980s, Virgin Atlantic, that was the first airline to introduce your own individual in-flight entertainment. This was radical for the 1980s. No airline had seen this before. And that came from someone who owned a record label. Richard Branson brought the romance and the rebellious nature of a record label into an international airline and pretty much changed the vernacular of what in-flight entertainment was overnight. These are very, very, very important innovations. And if we jump now to the 1990s at British Airways, the big innovation, of course, was the first lie-flat bed in first class, and then 2 or 3 years later, business class. These innovations came from outside the industry. The first concept for the lie-flat bed in first class came from nautical architecture. It came from a team of yacht designers that understood how to maximize functionality within a very, very small space. And bringing us right up to speed with our own experiences, when you look at what we did for JetBlue, that again, the innovation there was JetBlue seeking for the first time an independent design team to help advise with what their future customer experience should be. And JetBlue having the courage to implement a legacy product, a lie-flat bed, the Mint cabin, within a low cost, high value environment was a radical business step for JetBlue. And they completely repositioned or depositioned all of the competitors in the North American markets. And some have commented that the Mint product is the single most important innovation in North American aviation for some time. So it's important to acknowledge, true, meaningful innovation that sticks normally comes from outside the industry, which is why I'm so passionate about what's going on here with the Zephyr team. The aviation industry is waiting for something to happen with the economy and the premium economy cabins. The premium economy cabin is key. It's the growth area of the industry. It's an acceptable product for corporate travel. It's a healthier product than economy. It yields significant returns for airlines. And post-COVID, with our crystal balls, we can only predict that the premium economy cabin will grow because of its unique positioning as an upgraded economy class, or a slightly downgraded business class. But these two axes will meet. Now, what Jeffrey's done here is to completely throw all of the rules out of the window and introduce a lie-flat, highly private, adaptable, flexible micro environment for the same price as a premium economy seat. And if we can get this right, and there's no reason that we can't get this right, but it will be hard work. I mean, there is no doubt here. We are taking on a massive challenge here to disposition and completely rewrite the hierarchy of what's happening inside the aircraft cabin. But Bill Gates has confidently declared that 50% of business travel will never return. IATA, as Jeffrey mentioned, has predicted between 20 and 40% of business traffic will not return. So the idea of focusing our energies and our creativity in the premium economy cabin is probably the smartest investment for us in terms of our intellectual capital and our investment at this point in time. And the whole economic crisis that we're seeing now is the best opportunity for us to frankly redefine how we want flying to be for the future. I'll just end with how I started, health and well-being. Health and well-being, and I know this from being head of design at British Airways, consulting with high-level programs for Hawaiian Airlines, JetBlue, Copa Airlines, Air Canada Rouge, Belavia, Alaska. I know for a fact that health and well-being have always been of massive interest to airlines from a commercial perspective, from a marketing perspective, and from a service perspective. But health and well-being have always been values that have helped facilitate a purchase decision. Now they're the drivers. Health and well-being will be the single most important competitive elements to leverage advantage, to build loyalty, and to enhance brand positioning. And what I love about the Zephyr innovation is it's built around the notion of well-being. It's an extremely private micro environment. It allows for lie-flat sleeping. It allows for different ergonomic configurations. It allows for true comfort. And it allows for an element of a control of the micro environment that we haven't seen before. And what you're seeing here are the first iterative geometric explorations of what this seat could be. Look at these as sketches. Although they're very well defined, they're very well considered, the geometry and the architecture is pretty much resolved with what you see here. There's still a massive opportunity to customize, personalize, and allow an airline to express its own brand positioning through this architectural statement. So that's pretty much what I'd like to say at this stage. Thank you for listening. And I look forward to perhaps exploring some of the questions that you may have later in the presentation.
Yeah, thank you very much, Paul, for that. You bring up a lot of good points, and everyone, if you have any questions or comments on any statements that Paul just made, we'll have a Q&A session at the end today to allow anyone to chime in. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce our next panelist, Graham Taylor. Graham, could you give us a brief introduction of yourself?
Yeah, first of all, can you just check, can you hear me okay? Because I did have to switch. I was having some Wi-Fi issues again. Okay. Okay. Yeah, Paul.
It's actually, there's a little feedback now. Is anyone else receiving that?
So yeah, I've been lucky enough to work in across the things.
Hey Graham, can you cut your video potentially?
Okay? Oh, is it good? Or?
The video might be the issue. Could you try cutting your video and then just talking? Yeah, let's try now.
There.
Can you try?
Is that better now?
It's a little better, yeah.
Better, or we still have no audio issues? We still. Is it okay? Yeah.
It's a little better.
Can you hear me now?
There's still some lag and delay. Let's see. Let me try to see if I can help in any way. 1 second.
Apologies for that. Let me see if I can just do something. We'll try and we'll see how we go. So, like I was saying, Paul is the top right to follow.
Graham, there's a lot of there's unfortunately a lot of feedback. Could you try?
Graham, maybe if you just like to call in, that might be a little easier.
Yeah, in the email, you can open up your email from the Zoom registration, and there might be a call number you can probably use to dial in. And while Graham does that, what we can do is I can actually, Paul, since we're here and you just finished speaking.
Yeah, I could try and fill in.
Is that any? Can you hear me? Or not at all?
Yeah, it's actually better now. Can you say a few words?
Oh, what a shame.
I'll come back on in a moment. Well, in the meantime, we're obviously getting a lot of questions around the product safety and certification. So we'll wait till Graham comes back on. Sorry for the tech troubles. I hope we can eventually do something in person soon once all this passes. But Paul, let's go ahead and just talk a little bit about, you've had the chance to work on very unique designs that do require a bit of engineering. Walk me through maybe what the mindset is from airlines historically, and how that could be different now that the needs of travelers have changed. How much more open-minded will airlines be around new engineering concepts, and how challenging is what we are trying to do with Zephyr for modern day airlines?
Well, with a program of this nature, of course, there will be a multidisciplinary team within an airline that would, drive a program like this forward. And within that team, there'll be different voices that will speak to different interests, of course. Now is a time where probably airlines arguably are the most open to receive new ideas. But the rigor and the operation, complex and very important process. But we are potentially hitting the market at a time where airlines are frankly open to new innovative ideas to generate revenue, to retain customer loyalty, and to deliver competitive advantage. But having said that, this is a complex program, and even if the stars are aligned for us and everything goes our way, we're still looking at a minimum of an 18 months to 36 months to R&D program in order to get this thing from concept to a proof of concept ready for implementation. Having said that, it's important that we would have a team that can help engage with the key stakeholders at the key times. So it's important that Zephyr will have a team that can speak eloquently to the economics of the program, to the engineering of the program, to the certification of the program, and thereafter, of course, the marketing communications of the program as well. It would be smart for us to try and identify a key launch partner or partners and work with them intimately to develop the concept ready for implementation. But if there's a time to introduce an innovation of this magnitude, we are lucky. The tragic circumstances of COVID-19 are probably giving the right conditions for us to approach airlines such a radical concept.
I managed to get back in.
Oh, there you are.
There you go. Is that better sound now?
Right.
Okay, I think that's good.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. So please go ahead and just basically introduce yourself. But basically, Graham has worked in seat certification for multiple seating manufacturing companies. So he's seen the entire spectrum of projects that are difficult, very complex, to things that are changing. And so we're most intrigued to know, I think all of us, what trends have you seen and how challenging do you believe this current seating concept, Zephyr, will be to push through the industry?
Graham, can you hear us?
We'll give him a chance to. Let's go ahead and talk a little bit more about maybe some of the topics related to implementation of this with an airline. So we all know, and Paul, you've had a chance to work with a lot of these airlines before. You mentioned that JetBlue was surprisingly risk averse or actually not surprising to begin with, but then they became more risk tolerant when they decided to move forward with the JetBlue Mint product. So talk to me about how a lot of airlines are going to be forced to shift their mentality in thinking about risk, and where does Zephyr Seat fit into this? I mean, what is the best strategy to approach the airlines with this offering to the market? Is there any preferred path, or is there a most acceptable path that you found successful?
Well, I think one potentially very useful strategy for us is to identify a particularly relevant launch partner and if you like, co-create the Zephyr product specifically for them. Because if you look at what we're doing, we're basically taking a traditional business class configuration and we're flipping it by 90 degrees. I mean, what we're doing is not radical. What we're doing is radical for the industry, but from a user-led design program, what we're doing here it isn't that radical. But nevertheless, we are looking at a minimum of 2 to 3 years R&D. And proving the concept before this thing will actually fly. I mean, it can be expedited, of course, but we would have to identify a launch partner that's like-minded. Somebody like a Delta Airlines, for example, who genuinely places the customer at the heart of their R&D strategy. Someone who does have the courage. Someone who believes in the role of innovation as being a brand driver. They would be a fantastic launch customer for somebody like us. Same to an airline such as Emirates or Etihad. So much of the innovation and the investment has been has been directed towards the premium cabins because traditionally they've yielded the highest return for airlines, which is a great shame because we should be really considering what happens down the back as well now. Which is why I love the idea of us almost starting a movement in healthier flight. We're instigating here a people's championing movement, which is about getting wellness and privacy and healthy travel for the masses. We want to democratize healthy travel for everybody and not just the privileged few who are in the premium cabins. So it's very important that we do seek out the right partner initially and co-create with them. So we can create something that's unique for their needs. And I think as soon as we've got a launch customer, others will follow. I mean, that's what happens.
And so actually, just to put a final kind of topping to that question, if you were a betting man, which airline do you think would probably be willing to take a chance on this kind of a concept? You know, we've seen airlines react differently at different times in their whole development cycle. Like we saw British Airways, you know, who would have thought they would have invented the first affordable lie flat business class seat? You've seen similar innovations, but which airline, if you had to bet, would you say would more than likely want to pursue this?
I mean, that's a great question, Jeffrey, which I'm ill prepared for, but I'll give it a shot. You know, obviously one could look at the hard factors here. You know, we should target an airline who is reliant upon business revenue. Because at this point in time, if I was head of their strategic department, I would be modeling viable solutions to keep my airline flying over the next 2 to 5 years. So we should start with hard factors and approach an airline who is particularly vulnerable to loss of business traffic at the moment. And we should overlay that with an airline who's got a proven, accepted legacy of understanding the role of innovation. So if you overlap some of those issues, you know, you're probably looking at a legacy carrier who's familiar point-to-point traffic. You know, it's going to be your Lufthansa's, it's going to be your British Airways, it's going to be your Delta Airlines. And here's a softer answer for you. You know, we could specifically target an airline that's in desperate need to catch up. You know, an airline that perhaps hasn't placed their customers at the heart of their thinking over the past few years. Perhaps an airline that hasn't modernized and hasn't worked as hard as it could have done on the customer experience. And perhaps we can target them with a specific proposition of, you know, helping them reclaim the mantra that they once had. You know, so airlines, you know, perhaps such as, you know, Singapore might fit into that category. But, you know, I'd want more time to think that through, but, you know, we should chase the hard factors and we should chase the soft factors, but ideally where they overlap. You know, someone who's going to be affected by the decline of business and someone who understands the role of innovation. Those should be our primary, primary objectives.
Great. And I think one other thought I want to mention is that this seat really is not being sent to the factories where the planes are actually produced to be installed. This is an optional retrofit for existing airlines. So they don't have to make a decision to have to need new aircraft to deploy this concept. They can swap out.
This is very, very important. So just for the benefit of our potential investors on the call today, the team that have helped finesse and realize this concept are experts in designing for aircraft. So everything that we have done or what they have done has been understanding the importance of retrofitting a modular concept within a pre-existing environment. So this is really Graham's territory here, but the Zephyr seat has been designed with minimal disruption to any of the aircraft fuselage infrastructure. You know, we literally want this thing to be like a Lego kit that can be snapped and clicked, plugged and played. So, you know, retrofitability, low weight, ease of implementation, flexibility and adaptability. These have all been central drivers to the creation of this particular concept. But you know, obviously there is much work to be done, and this is something that Graham could really speak to quite eloquently. It would be great if he could jump in now, but I suspect that he's not. Is he ready yet?
She'll try again if you can hear me now.
Great.
I think I'm,
okay, perfect.
I'm going to give up
I've
on
done the best job to be your warm-up guy.
person and all this. Yeah, so hopefully the industry, from Emirates to Etihad to ANA, and a lot of it starts off with pushing the boundaries outside of the norm of the acceptable, and what the customer wants and what the airline needs. A lot of this, it really is pushing the boundaries on as far as certification. I mean, it's never been done before. Like Paul said very well at the beginning, this is a difficult task. It shouldn't be underestimated in any way. Is it impossible? No, it's just difficult. To go on through the certification process, we have engaged already with FAA and some people at Boeing in this, because it's key, I've found through the years of doing this, that you have to get early engagement with the authorities and agreements on the direction you're facing. You can't just turn up with the seats and say, hey, I want to put this on a plane, because it's going to make life a lot harder. Going through the retrofit process as well does have some easier options, because you're just dealing directly with coming under the STC of the aircraft, and that can be an easy route to get into, rather than going from the line fit process. So kind of where we're at the moment with this, so talking with Jeffrey and talking with some folks at the FAA, my initial this design was just the loads into the aircraft, the interface loads into the aircraft floor. Boeing has very strict guidelines on it, or requirements, not even guidelines, and so does Airbus, on what loads you can put into the aircraft floor. But having talked to them and having done this in the past, there is potential and requirement for this kind of design to use upper attachments to drastically reduce the interface loads into the aircraft floor. And that's something, like I said, going back to talking with Boeing, it is something that we have done before, or I have done in previous lives before. It's something that they're open to. So, the more conversations you have, the more walls it breaks down as far as certification. And we're really at the point now where we want to start engaging more with these and actually doing some more dynamic analysis, just to see what actual loads we're getting, and then through to building up seats and doing actual physical engineering proof of concept designs. There are some, not only structural requirements, there are some other requirements in there that this design puts challenges to. But again, is it impossible? No, I don't think it's impossible. It's just hard. And like anything I've worked on in the past, and I think Paul, it'll be the same. We've both done a lot of stuff that's never been done before. And people might have said at the beginning, you can't do that. You can't certify that kind of product. And the proof is flying all over the world in products that we've worked on. If I just take a little step back to iterate what Jeffrey was saying at the beginning, and I think Paul mentioned as well, being a frequent international flyer, there is definitely the need for this kind of product. The shift has gone from your normal 3-tier aircraft of first class, business class, and economy class to more of a business class, premium economy, and economy. It's shifted backwards in the plane. Yes, I would pay a lot of money to be able to sleep in economy or premium economy while traveling. And you just look at some of the Middle East airlines, and I can't recall which airline's done it recently. It was on, I know Jeffrey can probably pick it up which one it was, where you can actually buy the empty seats next to you and sleep in economy and lay across the seats. And I've done that. And yes, it's a welcome sleep on a long flight. But one thing this seat does offer, which isn't out there, is it's a separation between you and other passengers. And in the COVID era that we're in now, people are very aware about their personal space. And I think this seat does offer that, the health aspects surrounding that, and just you're in your own little private area, isolated away from the other passengers. But sorry, I've gone off on a wild tangent there. I think
it's a great. Sorry to interrupt, Graham. You just touched on
no, it's good.
You just touched on a great point. A lot of our endeavors will be about culture change, because if anybody claims to be in the innovation industry, it's a challenge of changing perception. So to innovate an airline is to innovate the culture within the airline. So it's to create the conditions that allow an open mind, and it's to create the conditions to give to an airline to make informed, measured risk taking. And that's something that I know that myself and Jeffrey understand very well. So half of our job is actually changing the culture within an airline, and the other half of our job, of course, is proving the concept.
Mm-hmm. Because I think with this kind of design, from a passenger standpoint, people show it to, they want it. Airlines not necessarily don't know that, they're not aware that they want it. I mean, if you look at some of the ones out there, whether they be the Qatar Q suites, these are the things that really changed how flight is. And the New Zealand Sky Couch, they definitely changed the industry, and more and more airlines are wanting that kind of thing. Oh, sorry, go on, Paul.
No, that was it.
And actually, I would like everyone, I'm sending a link. I'm going to see if I can add this live on the screen, but Lufthansa has recently come up with a concept of, you can see it now, of basically selling empty economy class seats. Now, I don't know how this constitutes innovation. This is actually quite embarrassing, because it means that there's so few people traveling that they should probably not even be flying that route if they're able to sell entire rows of empty economy seats. But this is the direction. I mean, airlines are so desperate to cater to the needs of modern travelers that they're willing to sell them at pennies on the dollar, empty seats, which still, just like Graham said, do not solve the privacy problem. And first of all, don't even address the actual comfort issue. It's horribly uncomfortable. I mean, you can see how narrow those particular seats are. And they're actually not even long enough, even if they're all empty side by side, for someone who's more than probably 5 feet 10 inches tall to lay comfortably sideways. So this is an attempt at the industry to force innovation. We're just trying to be another offering. But this makes no sense to me. I don't even know how it makes news, because it's just, they're just willing to sell you what was already not going to be sold to begin with.
Yeah.
Rather than trying to rethink the experience they should be investing in to improve it for all travelers, not only for those on flights where they might have open seats.
Yeah, that's very eloquently put, Jeffrey. I mean, when you look at what Lufthansa are doing here, it's a short-term, tactical, soft product enhancement. That's how we would call it at British Airways. So what you see there is high impact, quick to implement, relatively low cost. But what we are trying to push with Zephyr here is completely reinventing the hierarchy within a cabin and offering a long-term solution for health, safety, privacy, and adaptability and comfort.
So let's.
And you, go on, sorry.
Let's go ahead. I mean, Graham, do you have any other thoughts on? I know we've been asked some questions here in the chat, but also really kind of about the whole certification timeline and the process. Where is Zephyr currently in this whole trajectory, and how long do you estimate it will take us, assuming that we can convince the right people that are needed with all the right testing to get us to the to the end goal? Do you estimate how many years? And then what does an entry into service look like after the seat's been certified? If you had to make some estimates.
Put me on the spot with that one. Yeah, I think whenever we do something, thinking past lives, whenever we do something that was completely out of the box new, you'd be up to around the 2.5, 3 years. Aspect I've done them a little bit less, but it just gets more challenging.
Yeah.
So I think you're probably in that ballpark for this, the 2.5 to 3 years. We have, we're not starting from complete zero. We have, like I said, engaged with the authorities already, and we have started those conversations, and they are aware of it now. So we're not just coming up with something from left field that they have no idea about. So that does help. So we are, like say, in the early stages of that. But like Jeffrey, like you and I have spoken about, I think with the whole COVID thing, now is just the perfect timing, because airline isn't going to recover overnight. You know, the airline industry is not going to recover overnight. It's a good couple of years out, and it puts this seat. I mean, it's unfortunately I mean, it is sad and unfortunate what's going on in the world, but it's the ideal timing to launch a new product like this. It just lines up so perfectly with everything. But did that answer your question, Jeffrey?
Yeah, that was great. That was great. I think the whole 3-year timeline is pretty aggressive, but I think very much in line with what other seed innovations have gone through. And I also think the timing is really perfect, because if you think about it, no one else is thinking about how to disrupt something that's currently not working, because they're all worried about saving the industry from complete failure and complete collapse. So now is the best time to be ready. When the airlines resume their operations, when business picks up as normal, they're going to have a solution that's ready to go and completely turnkey. And that's going to be perfect product placement if we can get into that whole lineup. So I think now we'd love to take some specific questions. Sue, do you want to maybe identify a few on the chat that we have now, and then we'll direct those to whoever's best able to answer them. Oh, just a quick answer to a question we see here. Yes, Zephyr seat can be applied to different modes of transport, not only commercial airlines, but rail, trains, long distance buses. And we are also in talks with the team over at Hyperloop to do some design for their futuristic high-speed trains coast to coast in the US, which will of course still take time, but it will just be a bit faster. There's also applications for this in the military. So we're speaking to the US Air Force about trying to find a more humane and comfortable way to transport our troops between bases internationally. So we're looking at kind of a modular concept that can slide in and out of the back of a cargo transport plane. So that's also another option that we're looking at. And I think we have a question here about the emergency evacuation and safety protocol question. This is one Paul and I can answer. I think we might have lost Graham temporarily here, but the minimum standard is, oh, you're still there. Okay. Maybe if you want to answer that, the emergency evac protocol, there's obviously like a minimum standard, but we're hoping to meet that if not beat it if we can, because again, everyone is offered aisle access, so we think that will help in moving everyone out in evacuation.
So I believe, and I might get this slightly wrong on the timing, but it's incapacitated 95th percentile male has to be evacuated from. You have to be able to evacuate them from the seat, and unfortunately.
I think we might have lost you there. Okay, well, we'll try to get him back, but basically to answer the question, there's a minimum in terms of seconds that where the entire aircraft has to be, I believe it's 87 seconds, something like that. So we would of course have to fall in line to comply with that requirement, but we're hoping that we're going to be able to design the accessibility of this seat and passengers into and out of the aisle in a way where that's not going to be a problem. We hope that we can mirror very similarly the experience in business class, which is typically where people can access the aisle very easily and also evacuate the aircraft. There's one other question here. Oh, sorry.
Oh, just a quick one, Jeffrey. The other factor, which is a softer factor to consider, is a service routine and how the crew would need to refine or amend their service routine to deliver catering equipment to passengers. it's a softer factor, but it is something that it goes back to that culture change exercise that will be fundamental to our project here.
That's actually very, very true. Is how to model onboard service, and for some airlines that do value those touch points to the end traveler, that's going to be a big, strong consideration. We are speaking with airlines about what those trade-offs are. I know Delta was very concerned about that, but we think that,
especially if they're unionized as well, Jeffrey. Because, but we take these challenges head on. We'll build them into the way that we approach our airlines.
And the other question which people have been asking is what is this going to look like from a customer experience standpoint? I mean, Paul, maybe you want to kind of talk about accessing the seat, getting inside and out of it, because you've actually sat inside of it before. What are some of your thoughts on the access and the passenger comfort inside of it?
Well, it's a completely new experience. So that from a marketing, positioning, brand perspective, that's very exciting because it doesn't exist at the moment. So we can create whatever narrative we want around how we make the product accessible. We know for a fact that small spaces are accepted in a way now that they weren't accepted so easily, even 15 years ago. When you look at some innovative housing concepts, when you look at the tiny house movement, when you look at smaller apartments being much more acceptable, when you look at some of the Japanese silo hospitality experiences and innovations, smaller spaces are much more acceptable now culturally than they were, 10 or 15 years ago. But it's a very exciting opportunity for an airline to storytell around this small space that's self-contained, that's healthy, and that is fit for purpose. It's a space that has been specifically designed around the needs of key travelers for short and long periods of time. So from a marketing perspective, it's very exciting. The challenges for an airline are to build a new service routine around the customer experience, and that brings with it exciting opportunities. But that's relatively straightforward for an airline that is a master of marketing. That would be very straightforward for the Virgins, for the Deltas, for the JetBlues. These are not difficult marketing or brand challenges. If anything, they could be massive opportunities for a potential customer, an airline customer.
That's exactly true, is that I think the whole benchmark for getting over the hurdle of major innovation and major change, once an airline agrees to accept that, those that excel at doing that and actually implementing it will probably capture the greatest value from the seat. Virgin Atlantic is just perfect. I mean, they're such an ideal example, but unfortunately they're going through a very difficult financial time right now, and we're not sure they're going to survive in their current form. We're trying to be very optimistic, but
it's just very, very sad to see our industry literally declining around us. But and just to finish on that point, Jeffrey, small is the new big. I mean, when you look at automotive as well, when you look at innovations such as the Fiat 500, the Mini, there's an acceptance now of elegantly designed, highly functional, smaller solutions, which are ultimately just as sustainable and just as relevant, even more so than some of the larger concepts that are available.
And I do want to stress, and I would like Graham to jump in on this as well, is this is not going to be perfect for everyone, and that is precisely intentional. This is meant to be a starting point from which future innovation and hopefully perfection of the traveler experience will begin to improve for the entire industry. But a lot of questions we've been asked are people who are larger in size, or they might be taller. What are going to be some of the trade-offs they have to experience? This seat is going to offer a very comfortable in-flight experience for 95% of all travelers. Those that are outliers would be outliers if they sat in a first class seat, a business class seat, or an economy seat. But we are trying to address a way to make their experience, to make everyone's experience better. But we have to start somewhere. And if this seat appears to be too perfect and too good, it's going to directly compete with business class. And that's going to be difficult for a lot of airlines to support right away. So hopefully the evolution of this product and superior design elements and features and customization will make it perfect. But this is designed to be imperfect.
And Jeffrey, just thinking aloud and inspired by your train of thought, you know, we could also innovate a service product, and also, you know, and then offer that as a supplementary offer with Zephyr. You know, so we offer the hardware, and we also offer solutions for software. You know, and we could have solutions for software that are based upon regional variations, cultural variations, and time differences as well. So, you know, that's something I haven't thought of yet. But, you know, we can offer solutions for services as well as the hard product itself.
That's actually a very good point, because some airlines focus exclusively on service. Yeah, Graham.
I was going to say, yeah, like you said, Jeffrey, there's never a seat that's one seat fits all. You know, they're all designed and certified around the 75th percentile male. And you've got, like you said, very well put, you know, you're comparing this to they would be uncomfortable in any seat. And, you know, we're pitching it this around premium economy area, right? So is it more comfortable than sitting in a premium economy seat? Yeah, far more comfortable. Do we offer, you know, a better sleep? Yeah, the pros and what you're pitching, yes, are far outweigh anything. Yeah. I mean, so yeah, sorry.
It would actually do us a disservice if we were to position this product as a premium economy solution. It's not. You know, we've created a new genre, if you like. I mean, it's closer to a business product. Perhaps it's the future of business. You know.
It is. You know, you brought up a good point. You see it going that way.
Perhaps we should target the business class sector with this solution and allow premium economy to be a premium economy. And then first class morphs into business class, and you know this could actually be a huge revenue driver as a business class product. But you know that is thinking very radically from an airline perspective.
So actually, I spoke to the COO of All Nippon Airways yesterday on a conference session about this. I said, "What does the future look like to you?" And as you all know, trying to find innovation in tight spaces was invented in Japan, was invented in these high density cities where sleep was a huge premium. You know, the whole pod hotel concept, this Zephyr seat was largely modeled after from an innovation standpoint, but just generally speaking, we're just trying to offer sleep in a very confined space. And his answer was, I have nothing more to work with. I have too many planes that have too many business class seats. My only option to avoid this pandemic or to get through it is to price those seats at a discount. I don't want to do it, but I have to do it. So he sees some version of Zephyr seat as being the evolutionary future of never having to need a business class product again. All you have is a sleeper and a non-sleeper. The airlines can call it whatever they want based on their marketing abilities.
And this was a dream that we had back at British Airways almost 20 years ago. You know, some of the more radical thinkers within the airline were actually questioning the irrelevant class system now. I mean, first class, business class, economy class, they're redundant concepts today. You know, if we could offer an airline a series of options, sleep, flexibility, work, you know, those are much more relevant concepts for people to purchase now over the antiquated and irrelevant class system that we've inherited. We've inherited a class system that doesn't make sense now, especially post-COVID.
Yes, and And Graham, did you want to answer any more questions about the actual timeline? Was there anything specific that really jumps out at you? I know we talked about crew rest areas. That is very similar in terms of design to the Zephyr product, but any other things that kind of jump out at you that might be specifically challenging or exceptionally challenging?
I mean, the loading into the aircraft for me is the biggest challenge. But like I said, said before, in conversations we already had with the airframers and the authorities, examples of this exist, whether it be the petition that has the flight attendant seats attached to it. You know, the like you said, the crew rest. There are. And also some of the high wall suites on certain aircraft. There are examples of this already there. So it's going to be challenging. There are challenges around this. But like I said before, is it impossible? No, I don't think it's impossible. I think the conversations we had, like I said, going back to with the airframers and the authorities, surprisingly for me, it was a lot more positive than I thought it was going to be. So yeah, I mean, that for me is the biggest challenge. But is it impossible? No, it's not. So I don't want to get into too many boring you with the infinite details on this, but I think that's where we are at the moment. And hopefully you could hear me through all of that and you didn't lose me.
No,
yeah, we did. No, that's actually great, and that's probably a very good way to wrap all this up. Is that the moral of this is that it's not impossible. This is not a monumental feat. This is a very logical transition to a shift in mindset.
Yeah.
And hopefully for many airlines and the industry, a shift in priorities away from their own to those of their own travelers. And that's really what this campaign was about, is I'm seeking support from you, all of you, the people who would be customers of this product, you, your parents, your family, your friends, your grandparents. This information, this data, this kind of demand indication is critical to bring airlines into this conversation, to help all of us bring this product to market. And as of now, we have 28 days left in this campaign, and I would be incredibly grateful for any additional support that you can offer, that of your family or friends, people who you know. Anyone who travels with a pulse can certainly relate to the problem that we're trying to solve. And it's incredibly important, and it has to happen now, and there's absolutely no excuse that is acceptable why it shouldn't. Paul, do you have any final thoughts?
No, I think that's a great summary, Jeffrey. Just want to obviously thank everybody for their interest that's joined the call today, and yeah, it's timing is perfect for the industry to have an open mind to something like this. But yeah, I don't have anything specifically to add apart from thanking everybody for their time today.
Graham, do you have any final thoughts?
No, I mean, I'm a little bit embarrassed about the IT issues I've had through this, and I would like to apologize for that. But yeah, thank you for everyone's time with this. It's been interesting.
Great. Well, that sums it up for us. Thank you, everybody, for joining in. We'll be following up with an email with a recording and additional resources that we talked about throughout today's webinar. And like Jeff was saying, we have 28 days left. We'll be introducing a few updates in the next coming weeks, and we look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Thanks for your time.